dadgum government, you sorry so-and-sos. You got your damn hands in every pocket of my clothes. Well, you
and good morning, Muskegon, and happy Memorial Weekend, all of you out there in radio, podcast, iHeartRadio, and computer land. This is Ian Muskegon, and I'm Jim Riley here in Muskegon's Clear Channel Studios with my friend and engineer, that legendary, the amazing Oscar Osbo.
Just like the Ginsu.
Handsome.
Oscar the Ginsu knife, Oscar Osbo. There we go.
Much younger than this gentleman over here.
As it turns out, yeah, little pre-show chats got me in trouble here. The co-host back with us, the Chronicle ex-Chronicle superstar, entrepreneur. There's some other nifty words I used for him, but it's Tracy Lorenz, and he's back. Good morning, Tracy. Good morning, Oscar.
Morning.
Good morning, Jim. Good morning, Oscar.
And at 9 o'clock hour, we've got a special guest coming in. Actually, he's been on before. We are lucky to have him again. Education Action Groups. Kyle Olson. Kyle and his Education Action Group, who have been looking at, putting the eye on education in Michigan primarily, but nationally too. And Kyle is a regular on Fox News, typically on their morning news show. So he's actually he is the media superstar for our county. And
thought I was.
Well, you're not in our county. You moved
that's
south.
Right.
You moved south. So you're the media superstar of your county. But we've got the two counties
the
moved
flip-flop
together.
Guy.
There we go. Yeah, we were talking a little bit about Tracy. This is flip-flop season, and of course we know that Tracy has a flip-flop phobia. So we may even address that as time
goes. Sounds like a song, doesn't it?
Flip-flop phobia. Well, I think it was John Van Wyck earlier in the week had suggested that this is the tube tops are back.
Oh, thank goodness!
In style,
We're happy.
Certainly in Muskegon County. So
Oscar's wearing one right now.
I am. I look sexy, With my beer belly hanging over.
Too sexy for your tube top.
That's why I don't have myself on camera.
Yeah. Well, there was that gal who filed suit against the company that let her go, saying that they fired her because she was too attractive, and that might have been a legitimate lawsuit until you saw her face, in which case it seems like
I've tried that and it didn't.
Lost the jury. Yeah, lost the jury. Well, anyway, hey, let's get back to the point of the show because it's an important day today. It is not Memorial Day, but it is the day before. It is Memorial Weekend. Lots of events going on in and around Muskegon, certainly in the entire country. And we are recording this show, folks, so don't call in. We'd normally love to have you calling in, but we don't want you to call in today because you'll just get the no answer sign. And
I'll still be here.
You'll be able to talk to Oscar, who will be here doing his job. But, I was looking at some information about Memorial Day, and I realized that I didn't really know enough about it, and which kind of surprises me because I'd lost a family member. My dad's brother was killed in World War II, and so I got onto the internet and did some looking around, and I found this, and I'll read some of it here. But first off, do you guys know you have to be a geezer, I suppose, because I don't think they teach this any longer, but Memorial Day had a different name for many, many years. Now, Tracy, you've got your...
I actually can't remember it.
Okay.
Ironic.
But you are aware that it had another name. For years, it was called Decoration Day. And
Decoration Day. Because we'd always put the stuff in the Christmas tree, and then people would say, like, no, you're off.
You would be off. And if you did that, in a cemetery today, that you would be really off.
Yeah.
But it was a day, and it actually came about after the Civil War, where, of course, there wasn't time or the ability for folks to honor the dead of the horrible Civil War. And so after the Civil War, folks, the families would go out and they would decorate the graves. Well, this, of course, has evolved now to what we have today, but here's an interesting story, and I'll just read much of it here. It said, during the war, Union soldiers who were prisoners of war had been held at the Charleston race course, apparently, as prisoners of war, and at least 257 Union prisoners died there, and they were buried in unmarked graves. Freedmen, who are freed slaves now, freedmen knew of the Union dead and decided to honor them. And together with other groups and other the teachers and missionaries and blacks in Charleston, they organized a May Day ceremony to honor these dead who had not been obviously honored to that point. And that became the first Decoration Day in the North. And beforehand, the freedmen, again, these are the black slaves who now were freed men, they had cleaned up and landscaped the burial ground and the building enclosure all around this race course. And there was an arch there, which was called the Martyrs of the, or they titled it the Martyrs of the Race Course. And nearly 10,000 people, mostly freedmen, gathered on May 1st, which would have been, I think, 1865, to commemorate the dead. And here's an interesting insight from an historian. Quote, "This was the first Memorial Day. African Americans invented Memorial Day in Charleston, South Carolina. What you have there is black Americans recently freed from slavery, announcing to the world with their flowers, their feet, and their songs what the war had been about. What they basically were creating was the Independence Day of a second American Revolution." And it's a side of this very hallowed day that I didn't realize, and it certainly ought to be one to do with racial tensions, certainly at this point fairly high in the country, to bring. Hopefully will bring our country back. And I'm quite surprised that I had never heard that story before. And I would hope that if you are listening, that you might pass it on. I think it's a really lovely story.
Well, they always said history books weren't written for the actual history back in school days. So,
well, this is something that I think is quite important, and it's kind of cool that in fact you had all these. You can imagine you were brought over here. Captured in Africa, brought over here as a slave and been a slave, and now you are a freed man, and you are honoring those who fought in the Civil War. So anyway, something to think about. Obviously, sadly we have lost far too many since that day, but this weekend is a weekend to honor those. And one other quick thing I found out about Memorial Day itself. I always wonder, do you have the flag at half-staff? And sometimes you see both. Well, there are apparently rules about this. And the flag in the morning, on the morning of Memorial Day, the flag is supposed to be raised to the top of the staff and then solemnly lowered to the half-staff position, where it remains until only noon. And at noon, then it is raised to full staff for the remainder of the day. And the reason for this is that the half-staff position remembers the more than 1 million men and women who gave their lives in service of their country. And at noon, their memory is raised by the living who resolve not to let their sacrifice be in vain, but to rise up in their stead and continue the fight for liberty and justice for all. So I found that kind of touching. And if you have a flag, try to do that. And remember that this is a tradition, and there are a lot of folks that are not fond of tradition in our country, and I think this is a wonderful tradition, and I would hope that those of us who can. I've got a big flag in front of my house, and unfortunately I'm not going to be around to do this, but it's a nice...
Oscar will run over there.
Yeah, I'll run over there, sure. I'm not doing anything.
Well, I might. You know what? I have a wonderful neighbor, and I might ask him to do it.
What if the flag is supposed to be at half-staff already? Can you still put it to full staff?
That's an interesting
Well, you're drinking
question.
a Falstaff.
You could certainly, in the days when Falstaff was another way we would celebrate Memorial Day.
Yeah.
That's a good question. I don't know. This is all we have here.
Can't get a ticket for it anyway, so whatever you do, as long as you're honoring the dead, it's something.
You can't get a ticket yet. Yeah, at some point there may be...
I don't think you're allowed to wear flip-flops while you're doing it, though.
I think you're allowed.
I think I wear boots.
I think you wear boots. No. This is guys. This is a hallowed ceremony.
I'm sorry.
Hey, there's another ceremony, and I will remind you because it is on Sunday. That is the Lost Boat ceremony at the USS Silversides and the Great Lakes Memorial Museum. That ceremony starts at 11 o'clock in the morning, so it's shortly after this show. So you can listen to the show, and then you can go out to the Silversides. And I will just tell you, this is another extraordinarily moving event. What they, among other things, they toll a bell for every American submarine that has been lost since the beginning of the submarine service, and they toll the bell and they read the name of the boat that was lost, and of course it's sadly a very long list. But they will have a great speaker. It's actually a submarine commander will be a speaker there. And one of the cool things that they always do, at least I don't know if they always do, but they certainly have done in previous years, recent years, is they will, at the end of the ceremony, they will light off 2 of their 4 engines, which is really cool if you consider that this boat's keel was probably laid in the late 30s or early 40s. And the folks who are in charge of that, the USS Silversides, have brought those engines up to full speed. So that's really kind of cool.
I didn't even realize that they ran.
Of
course, I guess they could have towed it over, but they had to get it here somehow. But
well, they did tow it over. Actually, Honey Bunch and I and some friends were out in a good mile off of the beach in Lake Michigan when they did tow the Silversides over. It was really exciting.
Run! It's a submarine.
We
if you
didn't have
didn't know what was
cameras.
going on, you'd be like, oh.
We didn't have cameras. We never
Under
gave it a
attack from
second
Wisconsin.
thought that we in fact would have the opportunity to see a submarine on the high seas. Of course, it was about midnight, and the channel was absolutely packed.
Because when I was in high school, we'd go down there to watch the races, but we never actually.
Yeah, different kind of races. Anyway, they
submarine
brought it over
races.
here. And do we have time? I got about a 2.5-minute thing. Do we have time to do that? Or?
Yeah, we'll just have to shorten up the next break. But yeah, we're good. Go ahead.
Okay. Well, I would like. I'm going to read something, and I asked Oscar that we could go to break afterwards because, frankly, sometimes it is a little emotional for me. But years ago, about 10 years ago, actually, I had sent a letter to the Chronicle, which they very nicely published. And I'm going to read. I've updated it a little bit. But it was at that time, it was called a December 7 story. And I'll just read it out right now. It said, about 70 years ago, a young man celebrated his 18th birthday. Little did he know that date, his birthday, would become a day of infamy. 6 months later, when he had graduated high school, he enlisted in the United States Army Air Corps and subsequently earned his wings as one of the youngest fighter pilots in the entire Corps. Over the next 2 years, he progressed from trainers to P-40 Warhawks and finally to the beautiful twin-engine P-38 Lightning fighter. He also found time to marry his high school sweetheart, and while serving in Italy escorting B-17 bombers, he learned that he was soon to be a father. In January 1944, he had completed his tour and was waiting in Triola, Italy, to return to the States, when a call came out for volunteers to fly escort for yet another bombing raid over France. Fighters and pilots were scarce in those days, our bomber crews were getting hammered, and our fighter pilots suffered the same fate. He did not need to volunteer, but of course, like so many others, he cheerfully did his duty. On January 27, 1944, over Salon de Provence, France, their bomber group encountered, quote, a superior number of enemy fighters. His wingman reported, and I'll quote from the wingman's report, being greatly outnumbered by enemy fighters and unable to rejoin the squadron, we took evasive action from the enemy fighters by losing altitude. We dropped from 24,000 feet to the deck. By this maneuver, we lost the enemy fighters but encountered heavy ground gun flak. Suddenly, I felt a terrific concussion. After getting my airplane under control, I looked back, and the lieutenant had disappeared from the formation. The young lieutenant's P-38G just disappeared in the great explosion, as German aircraft gunners found their mark. His body was never recovered. He was just 20 years old. He never held his newborn daughter. He never kissed his wife again. He was only one of the many hundreds of thousands of American heroes over the last 200 years or so who never returned. He was Second Lieutenant James G. Riley, Jr., U.S. Army Air Corps. 70 years ago, on what we now call Pearl Harbor Day, Jim turned 18. His whole life was ahead of him, yet he had barely 2 years to live. Those years he gave to his country. Thank God for all those brave men and women. God protect our soldiers, sailors, Coast Guardsmen, and airmen. May we never forget.
Well, you dadgum government, you sorry so-and-sos. You got your damn hands in every pocket of my clothes. Well, you dadgum.
Okay, we are back on this Memorial Weekend version of Eye on Muskegon. Tracy Lorenz, the co-host, and the inimitable, legendary Oscar Osbo handling the deck here. Couple announcements that folks have asked me to put up, and I'm happy to do so. There's a group here which is a really, I think, excellent group, Muskegon County Men Who Care and Women Who Care. The membership's open to anyone willing to commit 1 hour and $100 4 times a year to make a big difference for a local charity. And this is, of course, a great opportunity for those people who really care about affecting real change here in Muskegon County. To get together and to contribute a relatively small amount of money if you have the ability to do so, and also commit some time to better our community. And they will be meeting, actually it's the week after next, but it's at Fricano's Tuesday, June 5th from 5:30 to 6:30. For Women Who Care, and on June 6th, apparently they're segregating here, on June 6th from 6 to 7 for the Men Who Care. So if you're interested, I would imagine, I didn't do this, but you could probably Google Men Who Care or Women Who Care Muskegon County, and that'll probably pop up. One of the things coming up, just throw it on your calendar, this past week, Muskegon County Board of Commissioners had another one of what they call a planning session, and these are meetings that are specifically scheduled to keep the citizens from knowing what's going on in the county. And of course, the county is looking to increase the property tax rate, and certainly other things are happening. The lawsuit that a citizen had filed against the county is still not been resolved. It may end up actually going to court. Which since I filed the lawsuit, I would welcome. We believe very strongly that the county did violate the Freedom of Information Act and the Open Meetings Act, and if the county is going to drag their feet and cost the taxpayers again more money to take this to court. We certainly welcome it. It would be better if it didn't happen, but these are the kinds of things happening. But get your put into your calendar Tuesday, June 12th. It's a few weeks from now, but at 1:30 p.m., the county board will have another one of these planning sessions. And of course, we know that they're looking for a new jail, which who knows, maybe $35 million, maybe more, maybe less. Nobody knows at this point. This whole debacle of the Brookhaven nursing home, which the $2.35 million sort of middle of the night loan, still no one has ever asked, nor have they received an answer to the question, how is Brookhaven going to pay that loan back? As it turns out, I believe they were given $1.5 million or maybe even $2 million very quietly in 2011, in addition to this $2.35 million middle of the night loan. So lots of stuff happening in our county, and I will ask Tracy here, because you're a businessman and you own a variety of businesses, some of which are in Ottawa County, some of which are in Muskegon County.
And he still has all his hair. That's the amazing thing.
And he does have all of his hair. It's excitable hair too, as a matter of fact.
It is. It's mood
kind of
hair.
Kramer hair going on.
Kind of mood.
Yeah, dude. Well, but let me ask you this, because we hear next week we're going to be having a gentleman who's works for a company has a factory or plant in Ottawa County, and he has said, much to his distress, but he has said that far too often he hears from folks who live in, let's say, Ottawa County in this case, that Muskegon County is just not a good place to do business. Certainly, if we're going to continue to spend money and pull these secret closed, illegal closed meetings, at least as alleged, it's not good. But how do businesses view dealing and working and domiciling in Muskegon County as opposed to, let's say, Ottawa County?
Personally, I haven't had any problems. I mean, there's some extra fees that come up when you go get permits and whatever, but what I do in the residential building market, I mostly deal with the inspectors, and it's not so bad. But I run an office here, so I don't really have to pay taxes on that stuff. So it's I haven't any problems. So I can't say anything bad, as opposed to Ottawa County, where I can't say anything bad either. It's just I try to be under the radar.
Well, I understand
I try to
that.
avoid the.
And you don't want to make enemies, but not so much maybe than your experience. But are you hearing things? Because I earlier this week, the M Live had touted with some effervescence, I guess you'd call it, the fact that Muskegon's unemployment rate had declined, I think perhaps down to about 8.1%. And then later in the article, I believe they said that Ottawa County's was down in the low sixes. The difference was these were not
moved.
Well, they should not have been gleefully reported because,
shot.
in fact, Ottawa County's unemployment rate went down because employment went up. Muskegon's unemployment rate went down because, sadly, more people, like you just said, Oscar, they either moved or stopped looking, and in fact, employment as a whole went down. So while certain portions of the country, certain portions of West Michigan, we know are doing considerably better, our neighbor to the south, Ottawa County, but we are not, and that is an indication that businesses prefer to do business in Ottawa County.
Well, I have two friends right now that are planning on getting out of here and moving, one to New York, one to Florida, just because of the way things are around here. So
because of
not being able to find the work and
okay,
yeah,
all right.
Well,
yeah.
there's a lot of I mean, the rental rates around here and the land is so cheap. But if there's no work, what good is it to you?
What good is it?
Well, there's
have
another
a nice office and no one to come to it.
Well, there's another issue too, and I think that I've had business owners tell me this, but when they see irresponsible, at least from their standpoint, irresponsible governance and irresponsible decisions, spending decisions, and growth decisions made by government, they tend to not want to move there because they know that at some point taxes are going to have to go up. And while the Muskegon Chronicle and other newspapers might say, well, it's only going to be $52 for the average homeowner, if you own a business in the county, taxes could go up significantly and enough, especially these things keep adding up and adding up. The millages seem to be never ending. But at some point, businesses are going to say, look, I'm not going to either expand into our county or a county with irresponsible management, or I'm not going to move there because even though the taxes may not be awful at this point, we see bad decisions being made. We see bigger taxes on the horizon. Certainly if you want cheap land, move to Detroit. And businesses don't seem to be, that's not good enough. We will be back after this break.
Well, you dadgum government, you sorry so-and-sos. You got your damn hands in every pocket of my clothes. Well,
And we're back at I Am Muskegon. This is Jim Riley, your host, with the legendary, my engineer, Oscar Osbo. And we've got Tracy Lorenz with us.
Yes,
Yes.
I'm with us.
And Tracy is subdued this morning, so we'll...
I got a question I got to ask you real quick.
Go right
You know,
ahead.
we were talking about you were talking earlier about raising the flag at a certain staff. If you wear that shirt, what are you supposed to do there?
I have my, if you watch our show when Oscar puts it on channel
TV,
TV 38, I have my Michigan or American flag shirt, which is my radio shirt. I don't know, but I have heard some
You have to
folks
stand up or sit
I have to.
lower.
Well, I
or
slump over at
Got a
until noon.
drawstring that he can pull and it.
drawstring.
Well,
Like-
I'm kind
like-
of slumped
like
over when we
blinds.
do this in
And
the
I'm
mornings
not making
anyway.
I'm not making fun of my work. Like I say, I have my dad was in World War II. He was in the Big Red One. He was in Normandy. I mean, he very proud of him. And
Yes.
he was very thin. So he said the way that he made it through World War II is he just turned sideways, and bullets missed him. But anyway,
Well, it is amazing how small Americans were
Yeah.
back in the World War II days. Yeah, and especially thin, like you say.
if I turned sideways, they'd be able to
Yeah.
hit me like that.
These days,
Didn't take his
as
physique.
Tracy has commented often, turning sideways definitely is not going to shrink the size of what
Too much
folks are
false
looking
staff.
at.
But anyway,
Well, we are celebrating to a certain extent. We are celebrating the Memorial Day, which is on Monday, but the Memorial Weekend, and those of you certainly. I think everyone must have some kind of family story. If nothing else, I recall. I can't tell you how many years ago, but it wasn't that many. Standing out in front of Mona Shores High School when they brought the body back of one of the soldiers who was killed, I believe, in either Iraq or Afghanistan. And he was a Mona Shores High School graduate, and the whole Seminole was just packed with people with flags. And it was just a very moving event. And of course, these families, it's obviously it's terrible if in fact a person lost their lives, but it's sometimes equally terrible for those who are left behind. And,
did you ever interview Patrick Shane Duncan, by chance? Do you know who he is?
No.
Oh, he's the one. Okay.
He doesn't know me either, so it's
he's the one. He's from Michigan. He wrote Mr. Holland's Opus, and he also did Courage Under Fire.
Oh my God!
Courage Under Fire. That was a great movie as far as a war movie
I really
goes.
enjoyed that.
Yeah, was I don't know why I thought of that. Just popped in my head, but sorry.
Well, but again,
just one of those days.
It gives you
the heat.
I agree with you. I think that was a wonderful movie.
It was to just talk about a different type of war, not just World War II. That was the Gulf War, I think it was.
Yes.
So.
Yes. Yeah.
But anyway,
doing creative ways to kill you.
Yeah. Well, I was just wondering.
Come down to the same thing though. They just want to put a hole in you.
If that was based on anything true or anything, because he was quite in depth. But anyway, Patrick Shane Duncan, he's proud to be from Michigan. He's not in Michigan anymore, but anyway.
Sure. No, once they get successful.
Yeah, they're gone.
Adios. I'm a ghost.
Well, many successful people do stay here. But of course, if you're in that industry, you leave. I find it interesting.
Yeah, like us. We're all here.
Well, we are. Exactly. It doesn't get any bigger nor more successful than we are, and we will remain here. I know I certainly will. But it is sad that of course our governors don't seem to like Michigan very much. John Engler, as soon as he finished his third term, moved to the Jillionaires town of Washington D.C. and now I see that the not lamented Jennifer Granholm has got her own television show on Al Gore. Did you know Al Gore had a television channel?
He invented television.
He did, didn't he?
Essentially, he did.
Yes, he does have his own channel. It was supposed to be like the All Green channel or the All...
I believe it's called Current. I don't get it on mine, but he gave Jennifer Granholm...
It's called a channel to fall asleep by.
A show. Well, actually, this Granholm... actually, her show might be something to keep you awake. What she said, the Republicans in the state of Michigan are trying to have some campaign finance reform as far as being able to prove that in fact you are a registered voter and an American in order to vote, and to enhance the accuracy of these qualified voter files, which we're finding out now. There's any number of dead people that have been voting and all sorts of felons and illegal votes, things going on there, and require registration and training for third-party voter registration organizations like Acorn, which we now know it's been proven and videotaped numerous times as really being essentially a criminal operation to register illegal folks for a variety of reasons. They were illegal, but to be able to vote. Well, anyway, Jennifer Granholm doesn't seem to like this. And she says, she calls the efforts to suppress, she calls this an effort to suppress voting, primarily the requirement that you show a photo ID, is not just selfish, they're not just short-sighted, they are treasonous.
Treasonous.
So it is in the view of a very, very prominent Democrat, in the view of many in the Democrat Party, I'm sure that they share her view, that the efforts that those, apparently those evil folks in the Republican Party, to make sure that you are in fact legally eligible to vote, that's treasonous. So,
did you know that each of her moles is registered? It's like it's worth 7 voters right there. She
is ostensibly an attractive woman, but honest to golly, when I see her on television, I just see these bouncy things on her face.
One of my favorite pictures is her giving me the rabbit ears. I got my picture taken with her, and she put the 2 fingers up behind my head.
Jennifer Granholm did that?
Yeah. It's in my book. It's a picture of me and Jen, and she's got the rabbit ears over my
She
behind my
just
head.
wanted to touch your hair.
That's right.
Good golly. Well,
Lucky.
I suppose that wouldn't have been treasonous, but trying to make sure that folks are legally able to vote, that would be. Hey, we were talking small talk, waiting for our super guest of the day, and here he is, Kyle Olson.
Good morning.
Kyle, you are the, what is it, executive director? Is that your title, or
founder,
emperor,
close
czar?
enough.
Founder of Education Action Group. As I've often said, Muskegon's #1 media superstar, maybe not the darling in our county. I don't see you written about much in the Muskegon Chronicle, but I do see you on TV all the time.
Yeah, you'd have to take that up with them. I'm not sure why. And I think I told you last time. So we're actually building a studio in our office here in Norton Shores, so I can do those live segments on Fox and Friends and whatever other shows. And so we're going to be, broadcasting from Muskegon, talking about Muskegon, that sort of thing. And so we'll have to wait and see if the Chronicle actually does anything related to that.
So we have a studio being built in Norton Shores, and the Chronicle isn't going berserk over the fact that we've got that type of entertainment, that type of media event. I mean, you can be sure they seem to have gone all. Again, I got to come up with a term that won't get me in trouble. I guess just say excited about any kind of studio with the Michigan economic development dollars built any place in the state. But they seem to have missed the fact that we're building a brand new studio here in North Shores.
Well, maybe we should apply for a tax credit, and then we'll get some attention.
Yeah.
You know what? Sadly, I think you're right. Well, your group, give us a quick. We've got just about a minute before break, but give us a quick. What is the Education Action Group?
Sure. So EAG, our website is eagnews.org, and what we do is look at labor fights, school spending reform, education reform going on around the country. So our organization is very active in Wisconsin these days for obvious reasons, which I'm sure we'll talk about more.
Yeah, we'll talk about that in a sec. You bet.
And so what we do is talk about these different issues. We write articles, we produce short videos, those sorts of things to bring attention to these very real problems that we have in our society.
Alrighty. Well, look, we will come back and get into that even deeper, I'm sure more annoyingly to some of the listeners who don't want to hear about this, but we will be back shortly.
Well, you dadgum government, you sorry so-and-sos. You got your damn hands in every pocket of my clothes. Well, you dad.
We're back, folks. Eye on Muskegon. Muskegon's the #1 rated political talk radio show. #1 in our time slot, too, by the way. Arbitron ratings are out. We demand. We rule Sunday morning. We own Sunday morning.
You don't polka yet, but you know.
That's right, yeah. Well, and the polka guys, actually, Polka Melody show, I'm sure, benefits from our lead-in.
That's
so,
right.
so we are working in total polka harmony. And we've got Tracy Lorenz, Oscar Osbo, and we have our guest from Education Action Group. We've got Kyle Olson. And Tracy asked a good question. Why don't you guys just take it away, Tracy?
I just want to know who is building your new studios, since I'm a builder.
Sure, it's a company called VideoLink, and the technology today is amazing because traditionally, if you're going to do a remote interview from Grand Rapids, to a show like in New York City,
a television show, you mean?
Right, you've got to do satellite,
right,
which of course is costly, and they have to do certain times and that sort of thing. But with technology today, you can do broadband. And so we hired this company that's based in Boston. They provide all of the excuse me, technology, all the equipment, those sorts of things. And then what they do is they come in and build it, but then they run the whole thing from Boston. And so in other words, if I'm going to be on Fox and Friends at 7:45 in the morning, the show talks to this company. They control the audio, the lighting. They literally turn the lights on from Boston.
Wow.
Control the camera, all of that sort of thing. So then all I've got to do is sit in the chair, put on the microphone, and we're ready to go.
And you're not worried about having your time in the sun being controlled by folks who live in the communist state of Massachusetts?
No. At least not yet.
Well, of course, they're capitalists. They're interested in making a profit.
It still sounds expensive, though. Why didn't they just use Skype? Just curiosity.
Because they want a higher resolution, higher quality than that.
Yeah. Well, ABC uses it all the time, so I was just curious. You know?
Yeah, I'm not sure why.
Well, they do, but Kyle, you're not just an occasional guest. You are a regular contributor to the Fox News morning show, right?
Right. I've got a weekly segment called Trouble with Schools.
Okay.
And so we talk about different issues going on around the country. I'm told I'm actually going to have a spot on their website, I think this morning. So, yeah, we just each week we look at a different issue.
Who funded this? Is out of your pocket?
No, we've got we're a 501c3 nonprofit, and so we have contributors around the country, individuals, foundations, those sorts of things, and we are right of center, free market organization. And so when you talk to funders about the possibility of being on Fox News once a week, they're very interested in that. So we had funders actually fund that.
Nice job.
Thank you.
Well, I think it's a very nice job, and you can see you've got many of your segments are on your website. I know that you send links out if you sign up on Facebook too. I get those, which is really nice because quite often I'll forget that you're going to be on, and I'll get a morning reminder. You're still doing that, aren't you? I
am. You can go onto my personal Facebook page, or you can go onto the Education Action Group Facebook page and find those. Okay, great. Well, it's wonderful. If you missed it, this is a different view. We in Muskegon have got certainly a very strong Michigan Education Association who advocates on behalf of their union members, most of whom are teachers. It's nice that there's at least someone who has a voice, a national voice, certainly a statewide voice too, to investigate and find out if what's being said is accurate, and maybe to put the eye on them in terms of what's going on, and let folks know. Because right now all we're hearing is that we need more money. That the education establishment is never ending in the fact that just a little bit more money, or maybe a lot more money, will fix everything up. Right, that's right, and that's what we hear. But it was interesting. There's a study from Nevada that just came out that showed it basically charted spending versus student achievement, and what it showed was, they're spending more and more each year, and yet the student achievement is flat or actually declining, and so just simply spending more dollars is not fixing the problem.
It seems to me most of the spending is going to the ancillary programs. Like I went to Catholic Central, and we had nothing. It was reading, writing, arithmetic, and that was it. And then I had a stepdaughter at Grand Haven. She'd bring home her electives book, and it was the size of the Fremont phone book. Mm-hmm. All the different classes you could take, and I don't think any of those were making any of the kids any smarter. It was just, and if you're a kid and you look at this book of electives, you're going to take the easiest ones and the funnest ones. Mm-hmm. You're not going to take the trig.
That's interesting. I didn't realize that the choices that kids have in high school.
It's incredible.
It really is.
That book was this thick of nothing but electives. And for those of you on radio, I was pointing my fingers this far apart.
Itty bitty little tiny. All right.
It sounds like a quarter inch, but I mean, it was.
Well, I would imagine
we had two choices when I was in school. You either took mechanical drawing or typing. That was it.
It's funny. I
can't
took both. I think I don't know how that happened. I ended up with both of those.
When I went to Michigan State, I wanted to be a journalism major, and they said, "Did you have 2 years of typing?" And I said, "No." And they said, "Okay, you can't be a journalism major." And I said, "Okay, what else you got?" And that was a turning point in my career. If only I could type.
Yeah.
In the good old days. The good old days.
We had typewriters then, Kyle. Kyle's very young if you can't see him on radio.
But you could see him on television.
You could see him on television.
And you will be able to see him on TV 38 at some point in the future. Every Monday night, our show, the Oscar Videos, the show, Sunday show, and it's on Monday night from 8 to 9:30 on TV 38 or Comcast Channel 397. Got to get that plug in.
They can't see us Chuck Taylors.
No,
He's got Chucks on?
Oh yeah,
Oh, I didn't see that when he came in.
I love these shoes.
Trying to find them in my size is rough, you know. They cost double.
Orthopedic.
Hey, let's
orthopedic
get back to
size
the
15.
edginess of our show, which is we promise to bring edginess here, folks.
Sorry,
This is it.
One of the things that we wanted to talk about, we want to go if we have time. Hopefully, we'll get into the Wisconsin stuff and other issues that are really huge. But there is a union event going on here in Muskegon, and anyone who's driven downtown can see that the Red Cross employees, at least some of them, have been protesting and been on strike for a good long time. Are you familiar at all with that particular event?
No, I'm not. I've seen some national stories where the protesting and the strikes have been going on around the country, and I find it disturbing, frankly. But I don't know a whole lot about it.
Well, I spent some time over the last few days talking with some of the head folks in the Red Cross, not locally. The local folks really have nothing to do with this particular strike, but apparently, and this is really odd. And I asked the question. I said, "What?" This is again somebody from the Red Cross side. I said, "Do you know why they're doing this?" And we'll get into what it is that's happening. But she said, "No, I really don't. Other than to strengthen the union itself, because it most certainly isn't helping the workers at the Red Cross. But the Red Cross workers who are on strike have been without a contract for about 4 years, 3 or 4 years." And during that time, they have given up merit increases, cost of living increases, and any other the normal step increases that might have come about. And according to the woman that I spoke with, she said it was about $4,000 per employee that they have given up by not approving the new contract. And what was quite interesting to me was. And the new contract, I'm sure there are many details out there that we're not aware of, but the new contract, which of course they should have signed 3 or 4 years ago, was like most health contracts that you're going to see today, which required more employee contribution for the insurance and probably increased co-pays and deductibles and things like that, which anyone who's works for a private company, Tracy, you've got a company, you've not seen any increases at all, have you?
No, especially not exponentially.
Yeah.
Yeah, they pretty steep.
And it's happening. That's just life. Well, Kyle, you operate your business.
That's right.
Do you provide health insurance for your folks?
Free.
You do?
Yeah.
What?
Okay.
Absolutely.
Well,
I
then
just
these Red
have
Cross
my
folks
resume
ought to be working for you then. Well, the reality is that it's getting more expensive, and what has been requested by the Red Cross, interestingly, is so onerous that throughout the rest of the country, the same two unions that are on strike today, I believe it's the SEIU and the OPEIU. I don't know what that one stands for, but those two unions have already settled identical contracts in other parts of the country with the Red Cross. So for whatever reason, you have folks here in Muskegon and in West Michigan who are walking the picket lines.
No one told us.
Well, and one of the things that has got to be remembered is when you walk the picket line, you're not getting paid. And when you're not providing the blood service, you lose customers, which means that when you finally do sign, fewer people will be hired back. I was talking with somebody at Trinity Health Mercy Hospital, and they were telling me that many of the hospitals and many of the places that use a lot of blood have already dropped the Red Cross for other outlets, not just because of the strike and the fact that they can't get the service at this point, but because other companies, other providers provide it at a lower cost. So what we have here, unfortunately, is another union situation that doesn't appear to be doing its members well.
Well, and there's this game of chicken that goes on, where they'll go out and protest, or the union will tell its members, we can get better than this, and we're going to say no or whatever. We had a teacher from Adrian call our office. I talked to her, I think last week or maybe the week before, where she was telling me the story about how her local union leaders were not taking proposals to them for a vote. And so what they were seeing was this gradual loss of actually bigger pay cuts coming down the line because the longer that they go. And so she said, initially the school district offered us a 2% cut, which of course nobody wants a 2% cut. And the union said no. And then as the financial situation got worse, it went to a 5% cut. And the union said no. And she said now they're to the point where they could actually impose a contract, and they're talking about a 10% cut. And so her point was, if we would have realized that, you know, times are tough and the financial situation is not what it used to be, and we were willing to make some concessions and play ball, we could actually be in a better position. But because we play this game of chicken, we're actually ending up further behind.
Well, it's funny you would mention this, because this is exactly what the representative from the Red Cross told me, was that many of the folks, if not all, who are actively walking the picket line and who have actively forsaken a job for the last few years are not really aware of the specifics. And we just saw this happen, maybe not the exact same example, but we just saw this happen in Muskegon Heights, where the teachers and the employees of the Muskegon Heights school system were offered numerous opportunities to take pay cuts and benefit cuts in order to keep their jobs and in order to keep the system alive. And they essentially, well, they didn't essentially, they flat out said no, 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 to the point where they brought the school system into bankruptcy. One little, just as a sidelight, I guess we're done with the Red Cross. It continues to go on. It's sad. Hopefully we'll see a headline in the Chronicle at some point saying that they have settled. The question is, it would be nice to see an analysis of how many employees they have now after the settlement.
And how many years it'll take to make that back.
How many years will it take? Think about it. You've been paying your own benefits. I mean,
right.
They don't want to pay a relatively modest increase. They've had to pay it themselves or go without insurance, and of course all those years of income. That's a tragedy to those folks involved. As Kyle says, perhaps they've been ill advised. And I guess our buddy Roger Miller is back complaining. He's forever complaining about the government's hands in every pocket that you have, but unfortunately, those hands want to get into our pockets every day, every minute of our lives. So we'll take a break, and we will be back with Kyle Olson.
Oh, don't you love me sometime? So-and-so's, you got your damn hands in every pocket of my clothes. Well, you
and we're back. Eye on Muskegon. Oscar Osbo, Jim Riley, your host, and our guest is Kyle Olson from the Education Action Group. Tracy had to run off. Busy weekend for all. It's a celebratory.
You had to go build something.
Memorial weekend, and yeah, Tracy is probably a little jealous that Kyle's soon going to have his own studio right in Norton Shores. Well, Kyle, you've got a lot of stuff going on, and maybe kind of clue us in what's the hottest issue going on right now.
Sure. Well, I think the hottest political issue in the country, besides the presidential election, is the recall in Wisconsin, where you've got a governor, Scott Walker, who pushed through a very contentious collective bargaining reform.
This is the Republican governor of Wisconsin.
Correct.
Okay.
And what he did was he pushed a series of reforms known as Act 10, which it's interesting. Let me back up. It's interesting what they do in Wisconsin is they do a biennial budget. So every other year they do a budget, but they put all kinds of policy in the budget. So they expanded school choice. So they created more charter schools. They expanded a voucher program. They do all kinds of policy within their budget framework, which is foreign to us here.
That's standard for Wisconsin.
For Wisconsin.
Budget. Okay.
But anyway, within this context, he created Act 10, which was collective bargaining reform, which restricted collective bargaining privileges for private sector employees, which is what brought about the protests and all of those things that we saw play out.
Sure, we saw that this past year.
About a year
2011,
ago.
2011, yeah.
And so,
matter of fact, let me just interrupt here.
Mm-hmm.
They had big recall elections with the idea of recalling some Wisconsin representatives and senators, with the
Correct.
idea of having the Democrats then be the majority. And a lot of money was spent on that. There's certainly a lot of rioting and all sorts of things that happened. How did that work out for the Democrats? Were they able to take over the House and the Senate in Wisconsin?
They needed to net 3 seats. I believe, if I remember right, there were 6 people that were on the ballot for recall.
Okay, 6 Republicans.
6, correct. And they needed to win. And then what happened was the Republicans responded with recalls on a couple Democrats.
Okay.
So the end result was they needed to win. The Democrats needed to win 3 seats.
Okay.
They ended up winning 2.
All right.
So they did not get the majority in the Senate.
So all of that commotion resulted in essentially no change as far as the total dynamics.
Right. And then at that point, they could not begin the recall process on Scott Walker.
Okay.
But at the beginning of this year, 2012, they could start that process, which they did. And so he is on the ballot June 5th, which is just a few days away,
sure.
For recall. And so what has happened is, and the other interesting thing is that it's different than here in Michigan, where in Michigan, if you have a recall, you just vote the person out of office. You remove them from office. But in Wisconsin, when they go through this process of getting a recall election, it essentially is a do-over, where they have a Democratic opponent, and then they just have a revote, essentially.
Oh, it's a revote then, even though they're calling it a recall, but in fact, you're going to have a choice to vote for the Republican governor, Scott Walker, and then he's running against, on the Democrat side would be
Tom Barrett, who is the mayor of Milwaukee, and who was also his opponent in 2010, which is when Walker initially ran.
If you hadn't been following this closely, Wisconsin has been a traditionally very reliable Democrat state. It's voted Democrat, certainly for president, I think as far back as you can find.
And they elected Russ Feingold.
And he had Russ Feingold. Of course, he actually he lost his election, didn't he?
He did, but he was there for quite a while.
All right. So what's the view here? This issue is really driven by the teachers' unions and the supporters of unions in general, but in particular public employee unions. This is driven in order to, well, obviously to change what the Republicans have done to this point. Who's going to win this?
Well, I think if the election were held today, Scott Walker would win. The polling consistently shows that he's ahead. People have seen, because of his reforms, people have seen their property taxes go down. People have seen more teachers on the payroll in the classroom, because basically what has happened is when he repealed a lot of different aspects of collective bargaining and just limited it towards pay, you're empowering the school board to act more like a business and do what is in the best interest of the school district versus just the teachers or versus just one sector of that entire system.
I know a situation that we have here in Michigan, and it's probably the same in Wisconsin, is that even if you kept the exact same health insurance plan, the parts of the plan and the exact same co-pays and deductibles and all, but if you just moved from the MEA's private insurance company into another, let's say Blue Cross or another one, that you would save millions upon millions of dollars. Is that the same thing in Wisconsin?
Yes, and in fact, it's known as WEA Trust, where here in Michigan it's called MESA, which is the union-affiliated plan. And it's interesting because people who set up and worked in MESA actually went to Wisconsin and set up WEA Trust. This is 20 or 30 years ago. But you're right. One of the other provisions is that school districts now can go out and get bids for health insurance, and they can move away from this very expensive WEA Trust, still provide employees with high-quality health coverage, health insurance, and save dollars to save jobs or buy new textbooks or computers, and actually put more resources towards the education of children versus pay and benefits for adults.
Well, we were talking earlier about the fact that there's the old days of reading, writing, arithmetic seem to be gone, and there's all sorts of ancillary classes and things of that sort. I heard an interesting statistic. Ohio State University, which some people admire. Of course, nobody in Michigan does, but some people admire Ohio State University. And it's probably not significantly different than most of the Big Ten schools. But for every instructor at Ohio State University, they have 5 additional non-instruction employees. And is that kind of thing, I know it's been changing a little bit as folks have been laid off in these last couple of years, but there's been an explosion in that, has there not?
Well, I think that would be extreme for the K-12 level.
Yeah, I'm not suggesting it's the same numbers, but...
Right. Well, you look at Muskegon Heights, for example, and the huge amount of, central office, as they call it, and people who just simply were not doing the job, and putting their efforts towards making sure children were being educated in the city of Muskegon Heights. And so I think a natural way to look at waste and bloat in a school system is the administration. But then also they really need to look at these health insurance plans, retirement plans, those sorts of things, because that really is where the not only the immediate cost but the long-term cost is.
Is that happening in Michigan?
Not like it's happening in Wisconsin. It's been frustrating to live here in Michigan, see what's going on here, but then look at other states, whether it's Wisconsin or Indiana, New Jersey even, other states that are really tackling these things and saying we can't keep on this road as we have been because it's not sustainable. It's just simply not sustainable. So it's been frustrating to see Michigan not really seriously tackle these issues.
The term sustainability and sustainable is a term that the left loves to use, certainly about the environment, but they don't ever seem to be that interested in fiscal sustainability, which means the ability to continue to pay. And I saw something that really saddened me. It was a sort of a celebratory article on M Live about the fact that Muskegon Heights' graduation class, they're graduating this week, along with the rest of them. But the graduating class, the size of Muskegon Heights graduating, 68 young folks getting their high school diplomas. For all of this staff, all of this money, all of this tumult, it's pretty unfortunate that it's such a few number of people, and I would like to see maybe a little more focus on how many freshmen started and how many sophomores and how many juniors to ultimately result in this graduating class. What's upcoming for your Education Action Group, let's say in this next week? I know that occasionally I'll talk with you and you'll be in Wisconsin or you'll be out of the state. Where do you go?
Right. So we just released an animation, which you can find at eagnews.org, where we did an analysis between the private sector compensation and public sector compensation. Because what we keep hearing is that we're not paying public employees enough, or the private sector, what we call the producer class, is not paying enough in terms of taxes and fees and those sorts of things. And so we released that. We're going to be doing a series of advertising in the state over the next, starting Tuesday. We did a series of interviews with teachers and school board members talking about Scott Walker's reforms, and so we've got a series of things rolling out. But then one of the other things that I want to talk about real quick is we have been doing a series of spending analyses on teacher contracts around the country. And next week we are releasing an analysis of the Philadelphia teacher's contract, which is very interesting because in Philadelphia, like so many other school districts, especially urban school districts around the country, it's on the brink of bankruptcy. And so what we do is we attach numbers to provisions in teachers' contracts and show where the dollars are really going.
This is going to be interesting stuff. We'll certainly have folks go to EAG. What's your website again?
eagnews.org.
eagnews.org. And, of course, I post links often on muskegonpundit.com and eyeonmuskegon.com. Don't forget to check out newstalk1090.com for live streaming of the show. You can listen to today's show if you want to listen later or have someone else tune in. Go to eyeonmuskegon.com. We typically will post our show in the afternoon on Sunday. Next week, we've got a really interesting show, as we always do, but we're going to have a new co-host, one of the gentlemen who is running for Muskegon County Commissioner, Mark Molitor. He's been a guest before, but Mark will be the co-host, and we're going to have as our guest Muskegon Mayor, soon-to-be ex-Mayor Steve Warmington. So we'll be talking about what's going on.
Looking forward to that one.
Well, I am too. It's going to be an interesting show, I'm sure. Lots of things happening. Again, Thanks again, Oscar. Tracy, who had to leave a little bit earlier. Education Action Groups, Kyle Olson, all you wonderful listeners and viewers out there in Muskegon land, and, of course, the entire crew here at WKBZ. Don't forget, we're on TV, channel 397 on Comcast, Monday nights, 8 to 9:30.
And remember, this Monday, though, it's Memorial Weekend, Memorial Day, we're going to have a special show that I videotaped at Montague. It's called In Honor. So it's
that's
honor
right.
Of,
okay, so we won't be on that. We will be...
following week you will be.
We will be on the following week. Keep looking at the website, eyeonmuskegon.com. Stay tuned for Tom Sanaki's Polka Melodies. Hope you all have a great, wonderful Memorial Weekend. Next week, we'll put the eye on you, Muskegon.